change our direction, and we'll actually take a few questions here, kind of see what's on your mind, and see what we can do to help you be a little bit more successful in what you're doing. Okay, do you know the average price people charge for shirts purchased at live events like races? Now, I've gone and done live events myself using a mobile setup, and my general rule of thumb is charge as much as you possibly can. And there's a lot of variables in that. Most of the different live events I've been to have been, in my case, boat shows. And I know the question here is about races. But with boat shows, what I'm doing is people are coming in and they're wanting to put their boat name in an image of a boat. And I have my own collection of art for boats and saltwater fish. And what we're doing is we're combining the two together and kind of creating them a custom shirt. And we're charging anywhere from, say, and we're just doing smaller logos most of the time. We're not doing necessarily really big stuff. We're charging anywhere from about $25 to $40 on that. A lot has to do with, again, that perceived value. If we're going to a race and we're producing items for somebody's specific car, and that becomes a bit of a custom job, depends on what the garment is and how much imaging we're putting on there. But easily it can be in that same range. When it takes a long time to print something, do you calculate time or just material? It's all about time. Time is what will absolutely kill you. I discovered that in my early days when I thought I was making money, and I figured out that I was making probably about $10 to $15 an hour, and that's not really something I'm going to be able to live on. So, I started to realize time was a killer. If it takes a long time to do it, it takes a long time to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, and I can say this having gotten past that point of startup, you get to that certain point where you have to write off the things that aren't profitable. If it's not profitable, you just don't do it. Okay, and I know that's hard to tell somebody that. And when you're new, you're going to probably not make a lot of money because you're going to take on jobs that took way too long. If it took you, 3 hours to produce, a photo panel, I mean, hello, and you sold it for, $35, that sounds like a lot of money, but no, that's just over $10 an hour that you brought in. That's not a whole lot of money. Okay, you're not going to survive very long on that. So, a big part of it, if it's taking a long time to do, let's kick back and say, hey, can we find a way to do it faster? This makes it's very important to be able to manage our time when it comes to pricing and production. Okay, since pre-production time is important, do you recommend using pre-done templates like the ones from Action Illustrate? That's an excellent point. There are several good art companies out there, Action Illustrated being one of them, that have templates and great graphics that are already really set for you to use. And by getting those types of things and offering them, because a lot of times what you're showing people are stock designs. Say, hey, look, here's a stock design for some type of sport, and we're going to add in some text and whatnot on there. If you already have it pretty much made up, you're going to cut the art time out. Because I really didn't talk so much about the art time. I looked purely at production time. And we all know that you can easily spend way too much time setting up the art. If you got to do a lot of art setup, I would charge the art setup fee. If it's just simply you're taking a template and you're plugging some stuff in, you can usually knock that out so quick that it's not that big a deal. And a lot of times what I'll do is do a whole bunch of those in advance and have them already stored in the computer, and then they're ready to go print. And if I'm a one-person operation, a lot of times I'm doing that at night on the laptop watching TV, so it's ready to go for the next day. If I'm a bigger operation, I may not want to spend all my life in front of the TV doing that. But definitely those templates. There's also some art templates with on the Unisub site. If you go in deeper to the Unisub, you'll see that they have some templates for setting up the art, not just templates for setting up the substrate, but for positioning the art on there. So the more templates you can create and use, the faster your artwork goes, the more efficient you get. And don't forget that you can usually print faster than you can press if you're doing things one at a time. So there's nothing wrong with stacking up some transfers ready to go. You don't really want a bottleneck of where you just press something, oh, I forgot to print the next transfer, I got to wait on it. You want to get into that get on a roll, as we like to say, where you're processing things. So time is money. I'm serious I can be about that. Time is money. And it's only after you get experience that you start to realize that some of the things are just taking way too long to do. You're not making money on them, and maybe you either got to raise the price or not do them anymore. What do most established businesses charge for an art setup fee? I'm not sure that there's a standard per se. I see that number all over the place, and a lot of it has to do with, you know, first of all, you want to separate, are we creating graphics from scratch for somebody, or are we just putting together something? And if you're actually creating from scratch, you're talking about like helping somebody create a logo from scratch. You may be talking about you're investing a couple of hours worth of time in that. So at that point, it's going to be a higher charge. If it's just a matter of a setup, a lot of people do a flat fee of anywhere from $25 to $50 for just a routine one-time art setup. And then once it's set up, they don't charge you that again because it's stored in the computer. I look at jobs, if it's going to be intense, I'm charging them per hour. I charge like $40 an hour. If it's going to take me an hour to set up, it's going to be $40. If it's going to take me 30 minutes to set up, it's going to probably be half of that. So I tend to take a look at what I got to do on the job before I quote the art setup fee, and I might publish a range, but it'll all devolve, and I can usually look at something and tell how much time it's going to be involved in it. But other than that, I see ranges pretty much from about $25 to $50, unless it's logo creation, where you're doing a true graphic arts kind of thing, and that may be beyond your scope. That's beyond my scope. I have a great graphic artist down the street, and she's just a genius. She can create logos all day long. She charges $400 and $500 for that too. Are there types of jobs I can do with sublimation that are more profitable than others? What should we try to promote to make the best markup, coasters or shirts? I kind of believe in bigger is better, and I think a lot of other people do too. The reality is, if you look at a coaster that costs $1 and you have, I don't know, 25 cents worth of ink on it, and it actually costs you more than that, okay? But just in a real quick perspective, and you look at a Poly Performance item that costs you $5 for the T-shirt, and has 30 cents worth of ink in there. The ink is a really small part of the overall, because the overall is going to be higher than that, as we just saw. It's going to be higher than that. So let's say that coaster really cost me $1 to buy and $2 to decorate, and the Poly Performance cost me $5 to buy and say $5 to decorate when you factor in all the time and this, that, and the other, okay? So, I'm going to get a much higher margin on that shirt because the shirt has a perceived higher value than the coaster. I don't know how to drive the price of a coaster up. I really don't. I mean, certainly by me putting images of a grandchild on there, the grandparents are going to be tickled to death, and they're going to want them in the house. And you know what? They'll pay a pretty decent. You do a nice little coaster set for them, and you can probably charge them $15, $16 for it because it's personalized with their grandkids, right? It means a lot to them. Perceived value. But for the average person, coasters are probably nickel dime kind of thing. It just depends on that situation. The same thing with apparel. Most people are willing to pay the higher price points on apparel, but here's where you got to be careful, and this goes back to that perception. If you're trying to sell somebody a T-shirt, they have a perception of that Gildan 50/50 or 100% cotton shirt that that was screen printed, that they bought somewhere, that was screen printed in mass, and they got it retail for $7 or $8, and they're expecting you to do the same thing with your Poly Performance tee because you branded it as a T-shirt rather than a Poly Performance apparel item or a performance item. So part of this is you got to drive that perceived value up. You got to point out to people, listen, when you're doing the Poly Performance apparel, the imaging, the sublimation will not fade when you wash it, and all the other processes out there, screen printing, DTG, they're going to fade when you wash it. It's not going to fade. In other words, the imaging is going to last longer than the shirt, number one. Number two, we have a performance item, which means it breathes, which means it's more all-season type of thing. I can wear it in the summer and I won't roast. I can wear it in the winter and I won't freeze, okay? So I can wear it. It's more valuable because I can wear it year-round. And oh, by the way, you ever heard of Under Armour? Because Under Armour prices their tees, performance tees that is, starting at about $25 retail. So when you work those angles, that's what's enabling you to move that margin up to get that higher price point. And it's not always easy to do that across the board, because if you're doing coasters for a corporation who wants to put their logo on it, their perceived value is probably lower than for grandma and grandpa when they're buying it with their grandchildren on there. So that's what I'm talking about, perceived value. We really got to look at that overall perception and work from that angle. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for the day. I appreciate everybody coming out, as does Sign Warehouse. And Jerry sends his apologies that he was unable to attend today. He's normally right here with me doing these types of things. So we look forward to having Jerry back next time. If you have questions of me, you certainly see my email address there. If you have questions of Jerry and Sign Warehouse, go right to their website, and they got all their contact information there. And I'll be processing out this video and the spreadsheet, and then turning it over to the folks at Sign Warehouse, and they'll get it published on their website so that you can access it. If you have questions of Jerry, you can reach him. Let me just type in his email address here too, because he's definitely a good go-to person for any questions you might have, especially when we start talking about systems, some techniques, products, because of all the different things that Sign Warehouse carries. He is a guy that's going to give you that kind of information. So feel free to contact him. I've just added him down here at the very bottom of the screen where you can see his email as well. And that's jerry.barracks@signwarehouse.com. So feel free to contact him. He's definitely a good go-to person. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here for the day. Again, my thanks to Sign Warehouse for inviting me out today to present to you. And if any of you are at an upcoming trade show and have a chance to bump into me and say hello, please do. It's always good to meet the people that are on the other side of these webinars, because all I can see is your name, not your face. So with that said, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, and we'll see you later. Bye.